everyone. Welcome back to the Adcast, a podcast for the study of modern visual culture. I am your chicken who escaped the chicken run, Renu.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm the chicken that died so that all the other chickens could escape the chicken nest.
This is dark.
Yep. I didn't write an intro here because I thought I would just let you surprise me, and you really did. I'm really surprised.
This week AT stands for Absolute Territory because we will be wrapping up the winter 2019 anime season.
Jesus Christ, it feels like it's been forever.
Yeah. It's been a long season, but more like because a lot of things have happened in our lives, I guess.
That's true. I actually went back and looked at this, and apparently, usually between seasonal episodes, like between start and end, we have 3 or so episodes. But this time we had 4, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 2 whole weeks at least.
That is 2 whole weeks, yeah.
Like arguably 3.
Mm-hmm.
So,
thankfully, we're on time this time with the end.
Yeah, actually, somehow we managed to just get it, which I'm surprised about.
Yeah, we got the bread.
We got that bread.
So, before we get started, what have you been up to?
I have been up to variable amounts of things, aside from the normal amount of things that I do, which is lots of Grand Blue Fantasy and school, amongst other things.
Mm-hmm.
I have gone to many grocery stores this week.
Okay.
Yeah, this is kind of a fun story, but my friend has a very specific brand of oat milk that she likes, and that I think is quite well known at this point. That the sort of shortage of Oatly oat milk is kind of a problem that's beginning to sweep the continental United States, and normally it's stocked in like Whole Foods, but we went to Whole Foods and it wasn't there because everybody had specifically bought just that brand of oat milk. There was tons of other oat milk left, but that brand was not there. It was as if it had been picked clean from the shelves, like vultures. And that was, disappointing, because it's good oat milk. It's I think it's like Swedish. And
just imagine the hole in the shelf.
It really was just like a hole straight in the shelf, like just all the way back, and everything else around it was like bountiful and plentiful.
Right.
Yeah. And that was like, okay, sure. And I think I think we went back to that Whole Foods like 2 or 3 days later for some reason. I don't remember why.
Yeah.
But we'd also gone to, I think, like Costco twice in the week because one time my friend Dan took us, and then the next time I had to go after I got my prescription updated so that I could get new glasses, so that I wouldn't have to wear glasses that I had to super glue around.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then also we went to a lot of other grocery stores looking for this oat milk amongst other shopping.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what am I doing with my life? Do you know what I mean?
No, yeah, I completely understand what you mean.
I've taken my car out almost every day, like I think 5 out of 7 days this week to go to grocery stores.
Yeah.
Amongst other things, like I had to drive like 40 minutes to get to the healthcare center so that I could get my prescription updated. Right. But on the bright side, I now have glasses somewhere on the way, probably. Okay. Thanks, Costco.
Thanks, Costco.
And that'll be nice. I'm I'm looking forward to it because like I got some glasses that are like a little bit zestier than the ones I have on right now.
Zesty.
There's a little bit of personality to them, but my main concern is if they'll actually fit on my face comfortably or not, and that's the biggest concern for me. But I mean, what can you do? I guess I'll just push my glasses up forever.
No.
Yeah. And then after all that grocery shopping, and I do mean like a lot of grocery shopping. We went to like a local grocery store. We went to a Trader Joe's. We went to that Whole Foods twice. We went to that the Costco. I mean, obviously the Costco is not going to have Oatly oat milk, but worth a shot. And
sure.
What happened yesterday was we decided, well, we could just make like chicken karaage. And that was the only day that actually worked for both of us. So we just did that. Like we just made chicken karaage and watched Overwatch League and drank beer, and it was a good old time.
Nice.
I ate so much chicken. I wanted to take like a 6-hour nap after I ate all that chicken. But I couldn't because I had to play D&D right after. So, you know.
Oh.
It's okay. It worked out.
I mean, you got sleep eventually.
I did. I've had a decent amount of sleep this weekend.
Oh.
Which is nice. I've also been somewhat related to sleep, but I've also been looking into going part-time for school because you can do that in your last quarter here. And I have enough credits where as long as I don't utterly completely bomb my 2 classes this quarter, I can drop my 3rd one.
Oh, and you'd still have enough credits to graduate.
Yeah, because I have 177 before this quarter. I need 180, and I'm taking 13, but I could knock it down to 10.
Oh.
So, yeah, it would be doable. It would be highly, highly doable. Yeah. And it'd be nicer for me because like it would mean that I didn't have to worry about something, even though like it's not like a hard class, but I do have to do it and think about it and be there on campus, and I would rather just spend that time doing other things. Yeah, like Grand Blue okay, no, I actually mean that. I actually mean that I would need that time to like read because I have quite a bit of reading to do still between my 2 classes. Because one of them is my capstone class and one of them is my Korean War literature and film class, which is really interesting. Yep, I read a 240-page book by Bruce Cummings about the Korean War, and it was really good. It was also 240 pages long, and I had to do it in like 4 days.
Bro.
Yeah, it just kind of be like that sometimes. It just kind of do be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's okay. It's okay. I did it. Sort of.
Okay.
I actually did not finish the last like 4 pages, so I have to still go back and do that, but like it's like 4 pages. It's not that big of a deal.
They're gonna be like the 4 pages that mean the world, and you'll have missed the entire point of the book.
I mean, I skimmed them, right? Like I skimmed the pages, and it's like it's just wrap up. It's just like this is the conclusion that I'm coming to as a historian because and it's the point he's been making throughout the whole book. So yeah. The point being that the Korean War, despite not having a large cultural presence in the United States visibly, is responsible for the modern configuration of the police state at home and abroad. Interesting. It's very interesting, yeah. Because basically what happened was, and I'll keep this brief. I'll keep this as brief as possible.
Just summarize this entire 240-page book, NVD.
Right, exactly. I mean, at least from a U.S. standpoint, because there's a lot else to go into in the sort of Korean perspective, but from a U.S. perspective, after World War II, we just had a bunch of weapons factories that did nothing but make weapons, and then obviously our economy was going to take a dip because there was no one left to fight. So we decided, well, what if we just like don't declare war anymore, and we just be the world's police, which I mean is familiar to most people at this point, that's a thing that happens. But it is a thing that started in the Korean War most prominently. It is the most responsible for the current configuration of the United States as a war economy.
Interesting.
Yep. And, there's lots of other things to think about there in terms of, like, capitalism.
Yeah, that thing that you love.
Yep, the thing that I love to dunk on all the time. Okay. That's pretty much all I've been up to that I can remember, because, again, I just forgot to write things down, and I guess it's just not going to come to me until, like, 3 days after we record the episode. I'll be like, oh, no, I should have talked about this. What have you been up to?
I have been up to a lot of work. My current project at work has a really short deadline. And so making an animation in 2 weeks is really not fun. So that's what I'm in the middle of right now. And I mean, we hear a lot about like crunch in the gaming industry and stuff, but it happens in a lot of basically all creative studios that, it just happens, So that's kind of what I'm in the middle of right now. So if I'm a little tired in the IRLZs, it's because of that. But I am very genki today. So because I slept so much last night.
That's good.
Yeah. Other than that, today I was feeling kind of down on myself. And but shortly before, like as I was driving home, I remembered I had just gotten some donuts, and the lady who rang me out at the cash register, one of the donuts was apparently like a special kind or whatever, and it wasn't part of like their little half dozen deal, but she discounted it anyway for me. And I was like, man, these small acts of kindness really can just carry a person through, So that's what I was reflecting on today, is that these just be kind, wherever you can, people. Because you never know how it'll brighten someone's day. Yeah, so I mean, that's basically it. I have also been doing a lot of convention prep because I have a convention next weekend. I will be going to Anime Boston, so that'll be fun. And yeah, that's basically it.
Wow, short and sweet.
Yeah.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, so we can talk about anime.
Which is funny because I don't think that there's like a ton to talk about this time around. All things considered.
Yeah, all things considered. And I think that's okay because we had a couple that were like super awesome. And then we had some that we had fun with. And then that's it. That's good.
I mean, it was a much quieter season than the seasons last year, which is, I mean, that's not saying anything bad about this year. It's just we're talking about how ridiculously good last year was in terms of anime.
Yeah, we had so much trouble keeping up.
Oh my god. Yeah. I mean, this time around there was some stuff that I like kind of wanted to watch, but I didn't feel the compulsion necessarily to keep up with at the cost of other things that I could be doing.
Exactly. Yep.
And then last year was just sort of a juggle fest, and it was just like constantly trying to figure out what's even happening. And you'll have to excuse me that like I'm a little bit sick, I think. I woke up
again.
The last couple days with a sore throat that usually passes. Here's the thing is, I don't know if it's actually because I'm sick or if it's because the allergies are really ramping up now that it's like a little bit warmer. Like it just suddenly is like 10 degrees warmer every day for no reason. It just kind of be like that.
I don't know. When spring actually transitioned here and the pollen was everywhere, that's when my allergies hit. But now it's been a couple weeks since then and it's been fine. But I mean, you live in a different part of the world than I do, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no clue.
Yeah.
I might just be sick. I mean, it happens.
You're just going to be eternally sick. Like, you'll have a couple episodes where you're not sick, and then you'll just be sick the rest of the time, and it'll be a great podcasting time for you.
Which is weird, because normally I don't really get sick that often, but it feels like over the course of the podcast, I have been sick like an abnormal amount of times.
Yes, you have. It's because you're not taking care of yourself, Soup. I had to keep nagging you, and you don't do it.
Yeah, I know. Let's talk about anime.
Anime!
And not about my dying body.
Yeah. So first, we have Mob Psycho 100 Season 2.
Yes, Mob Psycho.
Oh my god. They continue to boggle me with their animation. Like, I can't deal with this.
Yeah, I mean, Mob Psycho Season 1 is really, really good. Mm-hmm. But Season 2 also just knocks it out of the park. It's actually ridiculous how good it is following Season 1. Right,
and it was interesting because at first I wasn't entirely sure where they were gonna go with the story, like because like Season 1 was so solid in terms of like where they were, like it felt very compact, you know, in terms of how they went about the story. And Season 2, it was a little more loosey-goosey, but then it started really coming around because they were like hardcore delving into Mob's development since Season 1, and I loved it so much. Like, it was such a good culmination of everything that had happened since the past season.
I think the first episode is going to be a little bit like, it's going to throw people off a little bit coming from Season 1, because it's like the cool down episode, you know, the reintroduction episode. And because the first part of Season 2 is so heavily focused on like this character development and not necessarily the, like, you know, psychic stuff. It's really more about, you know, Mob as a person, as a character, growing, which is really good. And you don't. I think the reason that the first episode comes off a little bit like weird is because you have no way of knowing that that's what they're gonna do. But once you're in the middle of it, you recognize that that's happening, and it happens like really, like the progression of it is really good.
Yes.
Yeah,
you have to kind of just like go with it in the beginning, and not in the sense of like it's bad, but just be like because you're wondering where they're going with it, right?
Yeah.
And then as it develops, you're like, oh, that's where they went with it.
Yeah, you should definitely, like, don't expect the high of like the end of Season 1.
No.
Just expect like the beginning of Mob Psycho 100, right? Like, you know, it's we're following the progression again. There's a little bit of a jump from the end of Season 1 to the beginning of Season 2. And I think that's the case with a lot of Season 2s, because you have to do this reintroduction work. And it's just naturally between arcs, you're going to have a little bit of a lull. But I promise you, if you stick with it, it's going to be so rewarding. And I don't want to delve too deep into Mob Psycho right now, because we do want to do an episode about Mob Psycho and One Punch Man, and just like one in general.
Just one in general, yeah.
But yeah, I think it's Mob Psycho 100 is like one of the most incredible things about it to me is that it feels so different from like anything. Like, it feels different from shonen action. It feels different from just like it's so unique, and part of that is because of the nature of it being just like a webcomic that one dude put together. But you really get a sense of who One is as a person and what he thinks, because you know, at the end of the day, like, the core ethos of Mob Psycho is that, you know, you have to be a kind person, and like you have to adjust to live in society, and you just have to, like, just because you have power doesn't mean you have to lord it over other people. So I'm really happy with Season 2. I think
so happy.
It's incredible. And like, just from the like animation standpoint too, it's boy, they flex so hard on this one. Like, it might be one of the hardest flexes in a serialized like seasonal anime that is like, you know, a televised anime, right?
Yeah.
I struggle to think of literally anything else that is like a televised like episodic anime that has animation as good and as consistently baller as Mob Psycho 100. I legitimately think that it is like mind-blowingly amazing.
Yeah.
Because like there are shows that have like really great shots and like amazing like Sakuga, but Mob Psycho is just so consistently good about it.
Yeah. It's, and I think like just like pairing the amazing animation with one's writing is just so, it makes it something else, because I think he could have easily gone on the path of like having like the formulaic, like, because he has the formula there, right, where you got Mob and you got Reagan, you got all these like factors that would make for like a good like sitcom-ish kind of situation where the characters barely develop, and yet he goes in the direction, he never forgets all these experiences that Mob is going through and how they build on his character. And it just comes through in such a big way that when these big animation explosive battles happen, you're really there for it, because it's really an expression of these ideals that his characters have been pursuing the entire time, right? Or that they've been changed by. So
yeah,
it's super, super rewarding.
All of One Stuff is very character focused in a really great way. Like even One Punch Man, and I think at this point it's safe to say that Mob Psycho is going to be and probably will just always be better than One Punch Man. Even though One Punch Man is incredible, right? It's really good. You know, second season notwithstanding.
You haven't seen it yet.
I know we haven't seen it yet. I hear that the actual show is better than the trailer was.
That's what I'm saying. Why are you judging off of the trailer?
It's just confusing as to why they would cut the trailer that way, because normally when you cut a trailer, you put the nice exciting bits in. Anyway, but like the thing is that a lot of the reason One Punch Man and Mob Psycho are good is the writing, but another part of the reason, like another reason, is because one actually is, despite not being like a technically proficient artist in the sense of like, you know, I learned to draw and I know proportions and stuff, right? It's a very kind of homebrew style. But if you actually look at the panels from the original comics that these shows come from, a lot of the storyboarding is actually done by one indirectly, mind you, because his framing is so good. Like he understands composition and movement in a way that is not necessarily immediately apparent from just looking at the art.
Right.
Like just from the art, like proficiency, technically proficient.
Right.
But the actual like understanding of composition and flow, which are, you know, much harder things to actually teach, right?
Right.
Those things he actually understands really well. And if you go back and look at some of the panels...
That's amazing.
Yeah, if you actually go back and look at some of the panels, they're actually really, really good. And he does a lot of stuff with his limited ability to draw. And that's not to say that his art hasn't gotten much better. It really, really has.
Oh, no, it has. Yeah, he's been getting so good.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's only natural that his power level is just going to increase from here, considering that he's kind of already got the hard stuff down.
Yes.
Yeah, Mob Psycho, really good, really good. It's super unique. I honestly think it's like in my top 3 anime at this point. Like,
oh yeah,
arguably vying for spot number 1.
Oh.
Like it's a show that's very important to me. I think it's very important that it is about, you know, somebody who's very, very powerful, but doesn't really know how to handle their powers, doesn't really know how to, socialize, doesn't really know how to talk to people, but he's like, still trying his best. And above all else, like the lessons that he learns, from the people around him, from his family, it's just like you should just be a kind person, and that is more important as you get more power, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a vastly different thing from any other shonen series.
Yeah.
So, Mob Psycho, definitely watch it. Like I will hands down recommend this to anybody at least once, right?
Yeah.
It might not be your cup of tea, but I still recommend watching it.
Yeah.
Because it might be.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay,
so
let's talk about the Promised Neverland.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Promised Neverland. Chicken Run the anime.
Chicken Run.
Oh boy, did those chickies run!
They ran.
Boy, did those chickies run!
Oh my god. Oh my god. So this series is so like it from like an action story kind of perspective. I think it's so successful because in other series that are kind of like this, where you have a situation where characters are trapped in a place, they literally spend the entire series trying to like get out, basically, or they're dealing with the situations within the location that they're in. But as the series progresses and the pace that it's going, it never like stops moving forward, right? Where you don't have any part where you feel like, oh, I mean, blah, like, oh, they're just doing filler or whatever. Like you can tell as how quickly that the series is progressing, that this author from the get-go has built an entire world. It's not just this little location. This little location is just the starting point. And I think that's so exciting because I have no idea what's going to happen next.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting to like this anime, and or as much as I did at least. And
exactly.
I think that's true for many shows, but this one was really engaging in a way that I wasn't prepared for.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it on one hand is sort of like that, it feels very much like an American young adult novel. Like something that I would read in like high school or middle school, where it's like, oh, the children have to escape the farm.
Yeah.
But the actual intricacies of it are really well executed.
Yes. I think about this and I compare it to things that we have released nowadays for young adults in that vein, kind of like Maze Runner or like all that kind of stuff that's been coming on in the past couple years, and it is like that, where they spend like the entire movie trying to like get out of this place or deal with the threats or whatever, and then when the final reveal happens at the end, it's like it's almost a letdown, right? And then I love how this series goes, because it feels like with the other ones that they kind of didn't have the entire world built, kind of thing. Like you get that sense of like, oh, they have a vague idea, like, oh, the government was behind it the whole time or whatever, but they don't actually like delve into the intricacies of it in a way that like that would propel the story forward at an appropriate pace, as opposed to this like series where they have such a solid understanding of where these characters are coming from, because they know what these characters have been doing since birth, right? But then also they know what the characters taking care of these characters have been doing since birth, and so on and so forth. And they have the entire system in place so that it's solid by the time that you get the reveal at the end that, oh, there's so much more going on outside of these kids, and you are so excited to learn more, as opposed to like a really like a disappointing letdown, like, oh, the government was behind it, ? Or there's something else going on, and then they end the movie and you're like, mother effer.
Right. I think one of the greatest strengths of the Promised Neverland is the way that it sets up expectations and then like subverts them, and it does this constantly, but in ways that you still don't expect all the time, right? Like I promise there's at least one twist in the show that you'll be like, oh wow, like at least one, I think, for most people.
And it's interesting because it's not an unfair twist, because the author does lay down the breadcrumbs, right? The clues are there, and if you're paying attention to the characters' reactions, then if you're analyzing carefully enough, you can think of, oh, maybe this is what's going to happen, and then sure enough, the reveal will happen, and either you've been paying attention or you haven't been, but either way, the twist will happen.
Yeah, I mean, the other really great part about The Promised Neverland is the fact that it sets up antagonists really well. Mm-hmm. And I think that might be like, that's, I think, one of the greatest faults of many of these young adult fiction pieces.
Yes.
I think one of the greatest faults of these like young adult novel types, these like dystopian escape fiction, is that it never bothers to set up characters that, like, it never bothers to set up real characters as antagonists, I think.
Yes.
A lot of the time it's like, you know, the problem is the system, and all the villains are, you know, complicit in it, and they're never really developed beyond that. And that's not to say that, like, and I know we like talk a lot about, you know, villains should have complicated motives and you know, should be morally ambiguous most of the time. But like, there are times when you want very simple, straightforward antagonists. Yes. And you don't need like a whole backstory, right? Like Kingpin in Spider-Verse, right?
Yes.
Very not complicated, very evil.
That's what
for
it
sure.
reminded me of, is when we saw the backstory for the main antagonist in Promised Neverland for this first season. The main antagonist for this first season.
Yeah.
I was instantly reminded of how they did the backstory for Kingpin, because it was exactly the amount of information that you needed. No more, no less. Exactly the perfect amount. And I was so blown away. I was just like, this person knows exactly what they're doing when they're writing these characters and the story.
It really sets up the motivations for the character, and also sets up why they would, you know, be an antagonist. But it doesn't even begin to say like, well, you should feel bad for this character. You're like, well, like obviously we should all feel bad for like the system being terrible and rigged. But like, you know, you don't feel like, you know, morally torn, right? You just feel like, well, that's just sad.
Yeah, it's just sad because it's like this person clearly had a decision to make. And they had options available to them, even if, you know, the system would rob them of, you know, like basically it's set up in a way that's set up against the character and pushes them toward making a wrong decision. But as you can see in the differences between the protagonist and the antagonist of the series, like there were options available. They could have taken the harder route, but it would have been the morally, I guess, quote unquote, good route, right? As opposed to the one that they did take, which is why they're the antagonist, right? Like, it's just such a classic setup that they carried out so well.
Yeah, I think one of the best things about it is that the like from a thematic standpoint, it really sort of demonstrates this cycle of abuse.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's really important to look at it because, you know, it is like we can see the reproduction of violence, right? With Isabella. Yes. We can see that the reason she is the way that she is because she was raised by people who were like that. And when she was offered, you know, a hand and like a way out, right? You know, she had to take it. And obviously, you know, we see through this like sort of montage that we get that, you know, she had to be ruthless to do this.
Yes.
And you know, the fault is, of course, somewhat with her, you know, a lot with the system. But at the same time, you know, it's like you understand why someone who has so few options would do that and why they can't see any other possible way forward.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Like one of the best scenes is the absolute like juxtaposition of that moment where she's standing on the wall between when the others are standing on the wall, because like you can see the moment where, you know, some of these kids never gave up. And the point at which some did. You know, they looked into the abyss, and some saw a way out and some didn't. And I think that's really important, right? It's like, you know, you can't necessarily blame this character 100%, but you like right, like there is stuff that you can still do even though it's hard. And like it's so well done as to, you know, like, because you can't feel right saying like, well, you should have just done this or this or this, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like she has no choice. And she, from her own perspective, has no choice. Yeah,
from her own perspective, right? It was the only choice that she could make. But then you see, well, it wasn't, and that is proven by the protagonist of this series,
right? And I think, you know, to that point, one of the best things about, you know, the sort of like juxtaposition of these two generations of people is, you know, if you look at the way that it works, you know, she doesn't tell anybody what she knows. You know, she's just like, what if I just like go it alone? And when it gets to the other kids, you know, Emma is so adamant. She's so adamant about not leaving anyone behind.
Yes.
And that ends up being like the most important thing.
Yeah, that ends up being her strength, is that she ends up trusting the other children and doesn't keep them in the dark the entire time, and that's what ultimately leads to their success.
Yeah
It's fascinating. I love the dynamic that they had, and and you could see how Isabella was trying to perpetuate that cycle by basically crafting Emma into another her, right? Into another mama. And I love that tension. Oh my God. Because you could see like how much she was like flexing her abilities as a mama onto Emma, in terms of like, I have the power to just like freaking break your legs and I can do all this and that and keep you under my thumb and just like just submit, you know, kind of thing. And submit like I did. It was her thing. And then you could see how pleased she was when Norman came back from the wall, because he did exactly what she had. She believed that he went through the same exact experience that she did. And it almost, in a sense, justifies her, because she's like, well, obviously that would happen because that's what happened to me. And that's what the cycle is all about. I'm just another cog in the machine kind of thing. Like, these kids are just wasting their time because I also wasted my time. And you get to see this. It really is like such a fascinating, like really quite well done in-depth look on this kind of abuse of, well, this is why abusees become abusers, right?
Right. And you know, to the point also, like, if you look at her motivations, you know, at the end of the day, her motivations are on some level what she considers love. You know,
yes.
It's like she's doing this to protect them in her mind.
Yes.
She's doing this to, you know, make them happy. But at the end of the day, she's still like controlling them. She's not giving them a choice.
Right.
Because she didn't have a choice growing up. And so it's really interesting seeing like the way that it doesn't absolve her of her actions, but does generate understanding and empathy for her position, while at the same time like knowing why she couldn't get any farther than she could, because she was so self-reliant, she was so self-focused that it ended up being her detriment. Yep,
it's true.
Yeah, and like, oh man, I will say that there are. I don't think I necessarily agree with every shot that they direct, like the director did.
There were some that were very strange.
Okay, yeah. So the and I think it got a little bit better as the actual show went on. Some of the earlier shots were like really. I think they were trying a lot of things and seeing what worked.
They were definitely experimenting.
which I'm grateful for. The
Yes,
director,
yes.
the director Mamoru Kanbei is actually I looked this up,
Okay.
and he is the director of Sora no Woto, which I actually really liked a lot. I feel like I don't meet a lot of people who have like seen it, but I actually think it's a really great show about something that's set in a world about something else.
Okay.
Because it's like a slice of life, like moe blob anime girls doing cute anime things show, but it's set in a world that is like post-apocalyptic, and even though you're in like a little like what looks like a little European hamlet, like a little like Italian village or whatever, there are like spider tanks and lasers and an encroaching desert that consumes everything past a certain point, and like you know, they're also soldiers. They're outposted on like on the edge of the world where nobody ever actually goes,
right?
But they're still soldiers, and it eventually wraps around. And this is all to say that I love this show. I think it does some really great things with subtle world building, but it feels a lot like what was that? Well, Girls Last Tour. It feels a lot like
yeah.
What's that other one? It kind of feels like Kimono Friends a little bit. I haven't actually watched it, but I hear that's generally what that's about.
Okay.
It's you know what it's kind of like actually. It's like the lore of Splatoon, which is about the post-apocalypse where like squid people are the dominant life forms, and every human has drowned in the like you know surfacing of the ocean after global warming or something. Yeah, it's actually like really dark.
What the heck, like, Nintendo?
But yeah, I love it. I love it. I think that's really neat.
Yeah.
But yeah, the direction of it is, I will say, interesting, and I'm glad that they decided to take some risks. Some of the shots I don't agree with at all. I think they're a little bit weird. They drag on a little bit too long, but it gets a lot tighter as the show goes on.
It does. I think because it seems like it might be maybe one of their first forays into a horror-esque anime, that they were trying out different things that they might have seen in other instances, like, you know, that kind of 3D, like, slow walk kind of thing to, like, build tension. But
a lot of the perspective shots, I think, were meant to build tension.
Exactly, but they just kind of ended up dragging things down, and I think they recognized that, which is good, because they kind of start doing it better later on, or they take it out completely, like the ideas that didn't work. So I hope that they keep moving forward in that direction in terms of like a positive, like properly building tension, letting the characters do their thing, and that in itself, the story in itself builds tension.
Boy does it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to do horror in anime, but this does a really good job of at least setting up psychological tension.
Yes.
And I love the way that the characters are at odds with each other, like constantly.
Constantly.
Even if they're on the same team, right?
Yes.
There's always a tension between you know these conflicting ideals, and like you know who said what, and you know who's actually on our side. And I love that you know there's so many like moments where you're just like, oh wow, look at them being so sneaky, and then like Isabella's like, you thought nah, I knew it, I knew all of this.
Yeah, but
and you're like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. But also like the way that they frame a lot of shots in this anime is like they frame it from the perspective of someone is watching them, and I love that.
Yeah, the directing is actually really strong. Aside from some of these like really weird like
aside from the random kind of
I think a lot of it is like CG flexing. I think they're just like, we have some extra CG budget. Do you want to do this? Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, it is really good. The Promised Neverland is really, really good. I'm really looking forward to another season of it. I want to know what happens.
I'm so excited. Yeah.
I mean. And this isn't even to like get into like Sister Crone, who is like a really, really interesting character in that show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she's such a contrast from Isabella, and she shows us like what the other like mamas could look like and can be. And also like I love that she tried to play Isabella and the kids, and she lost to both of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like you said, I love how the different like approaches and ideals of all of these characters spring to life and like they are constantly at odds with each other in a way that feels so fulfilling, because I think it's so easy in these kinds of like thriller kind of stories where you as an audience member are like, well, why didn't they do this, or why didn't they do that, or that kind of thing, like constantly like being like, why didn't you approach it from this perspective? But they so thoroughly explore different perspectives all meshing together in this one like centralized conflict, and I think that's so good.
Yeah, it's also like really good, and this is a sign that the directing is good too.
Yeah,
is that it's very, very good about telling you things, like showing you things without telling them to you. Like especially with Isabella's flashbacks, when she hears Ray singing that song, right? Like that's such a good moment, and the like absolute abject horror on her face is so well done. And then it makes you understand why Ray is so special, and why he gets to have this relationship with her. And it's like, there's some contrivances in like, well, he has this thing where like he can remember things from when he was a fetus, right? But because of the way the rest of the story is set up, it doesn't feel like it's just like pulled out of nowhere. It just feels like it's just a part of the world. It feels like this is naturally like it kind of feels like, it's not like you're making things appear out of nothing. You've always had the ace up your sleeve. And watching characters like try to mind game each other in a consistent way is really, really like cool.
Yeah. Like, I can't wait to see what other characters and things that this author has up their sleeve, because holy cannoli. I'm
super curious to see where it goes from here, because I don't know what's gonna happen from here. And I don't know, and I probably will at some point go back and read the manga, so that I will be able to know, and I won't have to wait like 3 years. But the reason I'm curious is because like, well, I just, where do we go from here, right? Like the tension of the first season is ostensibly done.
Right. It's interesting because the author has been careful to set up those breadcrumbs, right? So we know that there are some hints of the outside world, that there's someone out there who's actually trying to help these kids, first of all, through the books. And then we also have the knowledge of how the compound is set up. You know that the kids aren't actually out of the compound. You know that they're still in it. They just escaped one part of it. And you also know that there is a security system set up, and basically how it's set up, and where and also some parts that Ray remembers from his early memories in terms of like how things are going, in terms of like where the main base or whatever is. So there are elements there, and I'm excited because the world is just going to open up for them, and I think I have a lot of confidence that the author isn't going to pull like a Ruby or whatever, right?
Oh God, please God,
they open up the world and they don't really know where to put what the world is, because it feels to me that the author knows exactly what the world is. And so they're just gonna move the story along, like they've outlined everything, and they're just moving the story along.
Yeah, I've been assured it's good. So maybe I'll go back and read it sometime. Yeah, I am curious. I want to know.
Yeah, it's great. You want to talk about Dororo?
No, let's talk about Dororo.
Yeah, so Dororo is actually continuing. First off, but I'm glad because it's good.
Yeah, it's really good.
This show. The party's not over, Sue.
Party's not over. I'm still dancing.
You're still dancing. Yeah. So Dororo, as we said at the beginning of our winter 2019 intro, is about boy who got sacrificed to some demons, and now he's trying to get his body back, and he looks freaking cool doing it because he's got sword limbs, and it's amazing.
Listen, by the end of this series, he's gonna have all his limbs back. He won't have sword limbs anymore. He'll just have a sword.
I know. What will he do? He's just gonna fight with actual swords.
I know. Weird. Yeah, Dororo's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, they're plugging along that Osamu Tezuka plotline, so I'm interested in seeing where it'll go, because it seems like they're intent on going through the whole story. I don't know actually how long the entire story is, but
I'm not sure either. I do think that there's like it's actually surprisingly, and I don't know how much of this is the work of the anime team, but it's surprisingly like not grating, because I feel like there's a very real possibility for certain things from certain eras to be like, it doesn't gel with the sensibilities of our time,
right?
And so they become a little bit like, if you can't enjoy it for its like camp value, then it becomes like kind of grating to watch. You know, it's like you could watch the 1980s Transformers television show, and it would probably be something, but like I wouldn't.
They I feel like have done a very sensible job of like injecting like modern day like sensibilities in terms of like pacing and storytelling and things like that into this work.
I mean, I will say I do think that there's a very real possibility that there are some timeless qualities to the story elements of Dororo, because there's 100%. There's obviously a reason why Osamu Tezuka is considered like the god of manga, right?
Yes I believe so, but I feel like if they were to literally just adapt it like straight, like panel for panel, whatever, same kind of pacing, same everything, that it would feel very like 80s or whatever, right? It wouldn't feel like the pacing might feel awkward at times, or maybe it's too fast, too slow, whatever. And I feel like they've done a good job of like, they just made a good adaptation. I feel like for this time period, considering that they're adapting something from an earlier time period that's based on an even earlier time period, right?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, it's continuing. I'm excited. If you liked like the beginning of Dororo, I'm pretty sure you'll like the rest of it, because it doesn't change all that much from like how it starts.
It just continues
of, like how it feels. Yeah. So
I think it's setting up some interesting stuff.
Yes,
I'm curious to see where it goes from here, because it is beginning to set up this tension between Hyakimaru and his brother.
Yeah, it's the brothers. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I actually really like the brother as a character, who's just like, trying to do what's best, and he comes to the conclusion that like, well, it's kind of fucked up what my dad did to my brother, but also I don't want my country to die of starvation. So
yeah, you kind of understand where he's coming from, and I like that. I like that they didn't just make him objectively like, oh well, I'm my dad's son, I gotta do this thing, blah blah blah. Like they actually show him being conflicted and being like, he's trying to be morally responsible, but at the end of the day, he's been raised as the heir to this land, right? And he has to take care of the people, not just like one person. And so you can tell that he wants something. He wants his family together, but he can't.
His responsibility is definitely to his, like, territory and to his family, right?
Yeah.
And as somebody who is in charge of a lot of people, he is naturally going to feel like, he is obligated to help them in some way. And even if that some way is sacrificing his actual brother. And I like that. I like that they set this up where he makes the choice himself. Yes. Like, I'm glad that he didn't know to begin with, and then when he finds out the truth, he's still conflicted, but he still comes to the conclusion that like, well, I have to do this.
Exactly. I like how much he conflicted with his parents about this, like especially his dad.
Yeah.
I love that because it doesn't show like a one-sided like it just feels more real, right?
Yeah, I also like
in
the
an unrealistic setting.
I like the difference between, you know, his dad who did this so that his country would be prosperous, but also so that he could grab a bunch of land and power, and then him who's like doing this because he cares about his country and he wants. And
I think that's why it's more compelling for us to watch the dynamic between the brothers versus, you know, Hyakimaru and his dad, because we know we're not interested in dad anymore. Dad's just a scumbag, but the brother on the other hand is dealing with some real moral issues.
Yeah, that's just a jerk. And I think that's intentional, too. I think it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think Osamu Tezuka's done a great job with these characters in terms of, like, yeah, dad's there, but really we're just building up for the conflict between the brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's continuing. I'm interested because it's like... It seemed like it was gonna come to like... There is a little bit of an upwards arc at the end of the first set of episodes. And then it kind of, like, it seems like it's gonna return to this, like, wandering sort of narrative for a little bit.
They did kind of, like, so I think it was partially because it was, like, a season finale kind of thing, but also it was, like, a really huge confrontation, that they had the confrontation and then immediately... the tension like drops off a cliff and then you're back
I was surprised to learn that this was continuing, because I was like, oh wait, where do they go?
I thought they were gonna wrap it up.
Here?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I guess they kind of have to kind of continue on their way, because Hyakimaru still doesn't have all of his body parts back, so he's gotta still look for the demons. And
I mean, I think that's fine. Like it's it's set up. It's set up well. It's set up to continue.
Exactly. Yeah. Because it's not like he's ready to like take on the Lord and the brother and everyone, right? He's so ill prepared for that. So I think I'd be excited to see him get his body back, and then in the meantime have brother deal with whatever he's got going on.
Yep.
Till they confront each other again.
So yeah, looking forward to watching the rest of that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Kaguya-sama.
Kaguya-sama, love is war. They're warring and loving each other.
Yep. It's a show about two people that love each other very much, but they can't admit it, so they just go to just ridiculous lengths to try and make it's like if you had two ultra tsunderes and you tried to get them to admit their feelings for each other. It just doesn't happen. Oh,
it's a nightmare.
I think
every time I talk to someone about this series where they just kind of like tried it out on a whim, there almost always are like, I liked this way more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
Like, this was actually really entertaining. I didn't expect it considering the premise. And I'm like, yeah, man, you have no idea how much they deep dive into the Tsunzuns.
Yeah, I think there's a real possibility, like a real chance for it to become kind of this like grating dynamic, but I think it manages to toe that line well enough that it doesn't feel that way. Because and I think part of the problem with setups like this is that they're set up in a way where they can just continue for as long as they want to. Like they can just continue forever and nothing can change. And we always return to stagnation, to homeostasis. But
yes,
I don't think that's actually the case in this show. I think, and having read some more of the manga too, I think that one of the greater strengths of this is, you know, again, that they build on what is there. It doesn't feel like...
They are actually building on things. Right, they remember things that happened earlier in the series.
It actually feels like their relationship is however slowly it's going, progressing somewhat.
It is actually progressing, yes, which I think is one of the reasons why I actually do like this series, is because if it just constantly was about the gag, then I would... I'd be bored, right? And the fact that they do remember things like, fell asleep in the bed together. Oh no, or that kind of stuff. Like I actually really am enjoying how it's going.
Yeah, this is a really weird show because I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. Half having read the manga. I've read the manga for this.
Exactly, right?
And I wasn't expecting the show to be as even as technically proficient as it was.
Right.
Because I think some people will take issue with the way that the show operates because the show is so hyper focused on making sure that you're getting a sense of just how much these characters are overthinking it.
Yes.
And they feel like they are, to some extent, like being talked down to, like everything's being explained to them, right? But I think that's kind of the point. And I said this like when we talked about this, when we opened with this. I think that the narration of literally everything is the point.
It is the point, exactly. That's part of the joke.
Right?
And
that's not it's not gonna land with everybody.
Right, exactly.
But
like some people just hate narration in general. Like they want as little of it in the show that they're watching as possible, and that's fine. Right. However, that just means that this series isn't for you because even in the manga, 90% of it is narrating these characters' thoughts because that's what builds up for the joke, right? Is
right? I mean, the joke is that they don't talk to each other.
Exactly. They're just overthinking each other's moves to like the nth degree, and it wouldn't land nearly as well if you didn't have that explanation, right? Of like how badly they were overthinking. Because otherwise it would just be like them like playing through a game. One of them looks upset at the end. That's it.
Right. This is I think one of I've said that like sometimes that you actually do want to tell and not show. This is one of those times, right? Where
yes,
if you're doing it to achieve a certain effect, even if people don't like it, right?
Right.
It is still effective at what it's doing. And a lot of people do like this show, right? Like it's pretty popular show.
Yeah.
Because it's like pretty easily accessible. It's pretty funny,
Exactly. Yep.
It's 3 little segments per episode, so it kind of feels like a short form, except for when it doesn't, which I think I said this when we opened this one, where I think the reason that it's 24-minute episodes instead of just being a short form is because there are parts of the show that delve into longer bits, and they play with. I think it's nice because they play with the time that they have.
Yes,
like sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 2. I think that like the narration is the point. Like that's the joke, and it is the central gag. So if you're not into it, then like obviously you're not going to enjoy it.
Oh yeah, of course. It's like people just have different tastes and different senses of humor. If the whole narration bit isn't for you, then that's totally fine. That just means that this kind of comedy isn't for you, and find something that suits you.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that it is quite funny. A lot of the gags are, and really, one of the reasons that this show is so funny is because so much of it is not like mean-spirited at all. Like it's just straight up charming and funny that these people who care about each other refuse to talk to each other because they think that the other person is going to like talk down to them.
Right, exactly.
When like that they wouldn't. They would just They would just be like happy about it.
Yeah, no, you get to see these like little gems of moments where finally like all of this romantic like tension or whatever finally like it comes to a head, right? And these characters are faced with like an actual like gesture of affection toward the other. And rather than the other one looking down on it, they are both like super, super stoked, but neither of them wants to show it.
Exactly.
So it just makes for a lot of good fun, I think.
Yeah. I really like this show. I think it's really well put together, actually. Yeah. The voices are really well done.
Yeah,
the voice acting is pretty incredible. The characters, and this is a strength of the manga, right? The characters are really well set up in a way that is both straightforward easily readable, but also like charming, and also I think easily subvertible. Like there's I love Chica, like
Chica's a gem.
right, because she's so unpredictable.
Yeah,
like every time she's on screen, like something could happen, and you kind of get a sense of her character, like you know what she's like, but you also don't know what she's gonna do still.
Yeah, exactly. She's such a wild card.
And I love the maid because you have no idea what her real personality is. I think that's super fun. I like the treasurer because he's just the worst. Like he's so terrible, and I love it. Like he's so awful.
Yeah, like he comes in and you're like, who is this fool? And then you realize that the show needed him.
the show needs him because he's just
They needed someone who was just the worst.
I love it. I also it's also really funny to me that this show is like the directing, lighting, and animation of the show is really good for a gag comedy.
Yeah.
Like there's so many shots where they play with the lighting. There's so many shots where they have like really interesting visual effects on screen for a comedy show.
Yeah, and I feel like they almost have to, because a lot of this manga takes place in the same settings, right?
Yes,
it's either the student council room, somewhere in the school, or in the characters' rooms, right? And so I love that they vary it up that way, so that it doesn't ever feel stale or boring.
I think it sets up the visual aspect of the tension really well. I think it does a lot of work in creating atmosphere.
Yes.
For the monologues in their brains to really land.
Yeah.
You know? The show, despite and I think you're right that it really, really needs it, because the show takes place so heavily in people's heads.
Yes.
That you have to frame things dynamically, or else it's not going to be visually very interesting to watch, even if it is, even if the gags are funny. But part of the reason that they're so funny is because they animate the overreactions so strongly and so dynamically that it feels like, you know, you get a sense of like, oh no!
No!
Whatever will we do?
Yeah.
And It does really well in setting up moments of genuine, heartfelt like connection too. Like when they actually like, you know, hit that point where they're both like being affectionate, it feels really rewarding because, you know, that's what you've been building up to. There's these moments of like, you know, when all the romantic tension gets resolved, gets vented, and it's really gratifying to watch. And it really feels like, you know, just at the end of the day, like a relationship between two people that are really, 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 really bad at talking about their feelings. So yeah, I really enjoyed Kaguya-sama. And I don't know if you've watched the last episode.
I haven't yet. No.
Okay, me neither, but I've read the manga part of it, and I assure you it will probably be spectacular.
Good.
So, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so next we have Mysteria or Manaria Friends.
Yep. Mysteria Manaria Friends.
Yeah.
A short form story thing about two people who go to magic school in Japanese fantasy magic school.
Yes.
It's like if Harry Potter were really gay.
Like
actually gay.
Let's be real. It's just about these two girls falling in love.
Okay. So this is a thing, right? Where I was hoping very hard that they would kiss, but they didn't. they didn't. No, I'll save you the disappointment now. They didn't.
Yeah. Of course they wouldn't.
But they get like everywhere but. Right?
They are basically married by the end. I
legitimately don't think that they're, and this might be my personal bias, but I don't think there's a way to read this as a straight sort of friendship relationship.
I would disagree. I actually think that they very intentionally frame it very romantically, but they straddle that line of like this could be love, this could be like it could be, because I think that the way that they frame it is in a way like, if there's someone who is really just that homophobic or really just does not want to think about these two girls as in anything but a friendship, then they could interpret it as such. And I think that's one of the reasons why they don't include straight up, right, like gestures of romance and stuff. But at the same time, we know a lot of Japanese literature and storytelling has a lot to do with like implied romance, right? It's not always going to be two characters making out, right? And so I feel like they lean super heavily on that in terms of like, I mean, it is a romance, but if you really are just like about that friendship life, then they can also just be friends too.
Right, but I feel like at a certain point, like that's just what anyone will arrive at. Like
exactly. I mean, literally, these two girls are like straddling each other on a boat in the sunset. Like, there's
right.
How do you interpret that? Other than they're attracted to each other.
One is straddling the other on a boat in the sunset, and they stare at each other, eyes sparkling for I swear to God, 30 seconds.
And they're blushing like crazy, and it's just so much. Like, there's a lot there.
Yeah. I read a great essay, and I don't remember who it was by. I'll definitely link it in the link dump. But I read a great essay by somebody who was talking about the like different vectors of queerness in media.
Right.
And I do think that this is one of those things that is like really heavily coded to be a queer relationship.
Exactly.
I mean, to the point where like they really do everything but just outright confirm it. And
exactly.
I think that a lot of Japanese media is very guilty of this. But I also think that I also think that it's not necessarily the responsibility of people to outright say it. Because I don't want to set up a like expectation where if they don't kiss, it's not like a canonical relationship. Because that's not how you read. That's not how you read text.
Exactly, and I think that's more of a problem with overall media as opposed to...
of course. I mean, it's a big structural problem.
Yeah, exactly, because we're so used to, like, when we watch a movie, you know, whatever gender or whatever conflict is going on, is if there's a romance, the hero at the end gets a kiss, right? Or they get some kind of love affirmation, like, and I love you, or whatever, I'm in love with you, that kind of thing. And so we're not always 100% used to stories like this where all of that is just implied through the characters' behaviors and interactions with each other, especially in a relationship where one of the characters is like super shy, like in this one, right? Or their characters are also in this case quite young. So I just think that this is just like another way to like go about it, and if you I struggle because there are a lot of, you know, like, this is obviously going to be a part of a group that is just we really want to be represented, right, in a way that is like, doesn't feel like it's being cowardly, right? I feel like a lot of people watch this show and be like, just kiss, you cowards, right? And I think that's why it feels like it's not right in terms of how it's represented. But at the same time, I feel like this kind of media is needed because we need all kinds of media, right? We need ones where it is outright that these two characters love each other in the sense of, oh man, they're really just mashing lips, or in media like in Yuri on Ice, where they literally are getting married and they're exchanging rings or whatever, right? But then I think we also need stuff like this where it's just softer, right? The romance is implied, and these characters are, again, quite young, and so they're only just like coming to terms with their own feelings with each other. So
but yeah, I mean, I do think that this kind of thing is important, and I think it's important that we recognize this as queer media, or as queer readable media, or as queer implied media, right? It is almost like, it is both heavily implied, right, that they're gay for each other, but it's also like symbolically implied, because in a lot of ways their relationship is complicated by the fact that they're, you know, one of them is half dragon. They're both princesses, right? So there's a sense of like, you know, social obligation that they cannot be together, even beyond the level of like they're both girls.
Yeah.
So it's very readable as a queer narrative, and I think, I mean, it's on purpose, like for one reason or another, whether it is to in the sort of like cynical corporate sense of like of queer baiting and like sort of advocating, right? It's like there is that cynical take of like, well, it's just for the pleasure of straight dudes to like watch two girls kiss, right?
There is quite a bit of fan service in this series as well. So
like a lot of the shots are kind of like male gazy for sure, and like that's an undeniable part of this.
Yeah,
and yet like there's also kind of this level of like, well, it is very queer, right? Like there's kind of like no two ways around it. Like to anybody that has any kind of ability to read queerness whatsoever, because like I always find this, okay, as an aside, and this related, but as kind of a tangent, I have always found it funny that there's this cultural narrative of like, oh man, bro, my gaydar is going off, when like do straight people think that they have like really accurate gaydars? Because like I've seen people miss like the most obvious like queerness, like queer coding on screen. I'm just like, I can't tell if this is because you're like excessively straight, or if it's because you just have no ability to read media. And I will say part of this is because there is a current of privileging literalness and canonicity in media, right? When you disincentivize reading things symbolically, you miss out on a lot of potential queerness. And I think it does a disservice to media to always read it literally. Because this is kind of the thing, right? Where like, I don't know if you remember this time in like gaming review journalism, but there was a time when, and I think this exists for everything, but like there was a time when games were not reviewed on the basis of really anything other than their technical aspects, right? Where it's like, the controls of this game are a solid 8 out of 10. The story of... Okay, and this is the most egregious one, right? The story of this game is a 6 out of 10. It's like, well, okay.
It's like, okay, that's your bias, though.
You're making such a reductive statement about a qualitative, object, like a qualitative, existence, right? Like, you're essentially reducing all the complexities of writing down to a number.
Yeah.
And this is a larger cultural problem.
Yes,
but
it is.
Nowadays, we have a lot more, I mean, I want to say diversity in terms of like what we have for gaming review. Because I think that there are still those places that are like, well, this game is a solid 6 out of 10, right? But there are a lot more places nowadays that actually talk about games and their importance and why something might be good, and they don't just assign it an arbitrary number as if that's some kind of objective value marker. They say, if you like this kind of thing, you might enjoy this.
Exactly, yes.
And I think there's a lot of pushback to that too. I see a lot of pushback from it. Like, God knows my some of my roommates' friends, I overhear some of their conversations, and a lot of them sound like pretty hardcore gamer bros.
Ooh.
These are the people who are just like, I hate Kotaku because it's just Suju's talking about. That was me pronouncing SJW, but as like a word, by the way.
Okay, I missed it.
Suju's talking about the cultural meaning. It doesn't matter, dude. It's video games, and it's like, well, no, actually, all of that matters because there's stuff that we consume as products, but also as media that affects us on like on a like neurological level, even if it's not going to rewire our brains to become cold, hard killers, it does have an effect on you. You're going to absorb some ideas from it, regardless of if you're conscious of it or not. And it's such a shame that people just like don't value this sort of thing. They just
I think because it sounds displeasurable to them or annoying to them that they don't like it, but I think it's important for us to just have a lot of different perspectives and voices on a piece of media in general, right? Because there's so many ways to interpret it, especially something that's creative, right? It's just like any kind of book, right? Like you're gonna have a book and you're gonna have a bunch of people reviewing it and critiquing it, whatever, and sending their reviews out. And you as a consumer, it's your job to figure out, okay, I know this critic's voice and what they're biased towards and what they're biased against. I'll know that going into this review, or I will learn about that as I look at this person's other works, as how they critique things. And so I think it's important to have lots of different voices because you don't know which ones will appeal to you and which ones won't. And so I think it's a disservice to just basically be like, oh, SJW's blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read this bull crap. It's like, it's important though. It's important to not just hear an echo chamber of your own thoughts all the freaking time, right?
I mean, it's why we get into a situation where people physically cannot read media because everybody tells them that it's pointless. Everybody tells them that the only thing that matters is canon, and it's not true. Canon is important insofar as like representation is concerned, because like obviously we want ourselves to be reflected in the things that we watch and play, and it's important that we see those images of us, especially when growing up, because otherwise we're gonna feel like we're invisible. And like, you know, that's how I felt a lot when I was growing up. I'm sure you had similar feelings.
Of course. Right? Yeah.
You know, it feels like it's always weird to me when people are just like, well, you're just forcing diversity, and it's like, well, no, you're forcing diversity out.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like because people hold these views, right? If we didn't constantly reinterpret or reevaluate media from different perspectives, we wouldn't have things as beautiful as like Into the Spider-Verse, right?
Right, exactly.
Which is literally an interpretation of a piece of media that has been instilled into our culture for many decades, for just many years now, and it's now being reinterpreted in a different direction, a different perspective, in a way that is fantastic. You wouldn't have this otherwise if people didn't constantly see it from a different perspective, weren't constantly viewing things from a different perspective and getting their voices out there. Yeah.
So that is all to say, Manaria Friends is very gay, but they don't kiss. But that's probably all right, I think. I don't know. Honestly, it's like, other than that, it's a very nothing show. And I say that with the utmost affection. It's a very like calm, soothing show about literally nothing.
Yeah, it's such a great wind down show. Like, just like
it's so aggressively slice of life, but set in a fantasy world where life is like slightly different, and I love that, and I want more of that kind of thing, and that's why I love shows like Hakume to Mikochi, and why I love things like Mushishi and Kino's Journey, because it's very slice of lifey, but the life that we're getting a slice of isn't ours, and I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I will admit there were times in the show where I was severely like, just like, ugh, like, because it has those like romantic trope kind of things that they do with these characters, which is again why they are just romantically involved, right? But like, it does those things, and I'm not even mad about it that they have it in there, because we need this, right? We need these kinds of shows for queer characters and whatnot to hit these tropes, right? Even if I hate these tropes, we need them. We need representation in them.
We need them in the same way that we need Captain Marvel, right? Where it's just like it's kind of okay for it just to sometimes be nothing.
It's a very nice soft show overall, and It's actually really pretty.
Yeah, it's surprisingly well produced, which I'm actually not as surprised about anymore. But really, Cygames has just like upped their production, which is nice. Yeah. And hopefully they just make more stuff. I don't know. I was very. I think Cygames is so weird because it's like they just sort of are things now, but like it's almost as if. So I swear to God, it feels like Cygames sometimes came out of an alternate universe where corporations are regulated properly. Like, they don't, ostensibly, and this is obviously just from, like, anecdotal and sort of outside perspective, but, like, apparently they don't, like, they don't do overtime. Like, they just don't let you do it. They're willing to compensate their employees, like, reasonably well. They... Like, if they're behind on production, they don't crunch, they just keep working and delay it until it's out. And that's something that Granblue has definitely seen some of, and people are like, when will they come out? It's like, I mean, when we get it out, like...
Yeah, we're working on it.
We're working on it, it's like, all right, that's fine. And I mean, they had a good reason for not pushing the content that they were expecting out earlier, because it was 10 whole characters at once, and that's like, it's very careful. You should be very careful about doing that to a game that's like very focused on that. But yeah, I hope they make more stuff. All of the stuff that comes out of their universes is very interesting. Rage of Bahamut was pretty good. I haven't seen the last couple of episodes of season 2 of Rage of Bahamut, but apparently people really didn't like them, even though everything until that point had been a lot better than season 1. So I will hold that thought until the day when I finish that anime. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I would watch more Cygames stuff. There's a sequel to the Granblue anime coming out sometime. I don't know when.
Yeah, I saw that. I think it's coming out really soon.
Yeah,
like fall, I think.
I was gonna say I think it's coming out sometime this year, which might be interesting to look at. We would have to watch the first season.
I think that's gonna be your job.
No. We can. I'll make you watch it for sure.
No.
I'm sorry, Renu. It's just
why?
No, you have no choice in the.
What? How dare you?
Yep.
That means I get to make you watch something.
That's fine. I'll watch whatever you want me to watch. But this is important. You have to watch it because I'm not suffering through that alone, Renu.
What? 2 seasons? Okay, I get to have 2 seasons on you or something. Yeah, because there's Granblue 1, there's season 1, and there's season 2 that's coming out in the fall.
Okay, no, but what if season 2 is good? What if you like it? What if you like it, Renu? What if it's not bad?
I'll have to like actively not like it in order to get my 2 seasons.
Oh no! Don't do that. Okay. Let's move on. I don't want to be here for 3 hours.
Okay. So, stuff we didn't finish. We unfortunately didn't finish Boogiepop, which I think it's worth a watch if you like the stuff that Persona and whatnot make, because that's what they're based on. Is actually the influence is quite heavy, especially early Persona stuff. It's fascinating.
I actually really like this show. I'm kind of sad that we didn't get to finish it. But obviously we have time constraints and obligations and stuff.
Yeah.
But
it's not really a show. I feel like it's a show that is better off binging rather than watching it weekly anyway. Because there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff going on.
I think it actually luckily started airing like 2 or 3 weeks before every other show, so it finished like a lot earlier.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
But it's definitely worth watching all the way through. You're not gonna get it until like episode 2 or 3. It's not gonna make sense until then. Like I promised. It's just know that it's not in chronological order. Exactly. And that's on purpose.
Yeah, and it might even garner like a second, like a rewatch, basically. Right. After you're done, because of the way that it's told.
I think this is another show that people didn't necessarily like. And I think that that's valid. I don't think the show is for everyone. Like, I think that it is very possible that the discontinuous narrative is jarring enough that it takes you out. But I really like the way that it builds the narrative on itself. Mind you, I've only seen 6 episodes. I don't know how it finishes. I've never read the light novels, but I am very interested in looking at it as an early influence on media at that time. Like, stuff like Persona is, despite the fact that, Persona is kind of considered like more of a cult game, especially the older ones. I think we've gotten to the point where it's starting to enter a little, like it's starting to peek its head into the mainstream.
Yes.
In terms of like big series, right?
Yeah.
The first couple games, very like, I mean, it's very much just like somebody wanted to make this game, and it feels. I don't know anything about Personas 1 or 2 other than Persona 2 was, I think, gay. So there was a gay. There was a gay. But I am very interested in the aesthetic of Persona and the ideas of Persona. I like that Persona is this Japanese perspective on Jungian archetypes and Jungian psychology.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I always think that's really interesting. Because I mean, the goddamn game series is named Persona, right? Like,
yeah, and they talk about shadows.
They're talking about shadows. Yeah, the true self. I like it because it's a way to explore identity, especially, and I think this is actually why I like Persona. And the reason I like Persona is one of the reasons I dislike a lot of anime is because it actually is considerate of the fact that they're high school kids and the fact that that's going to make your identity somewhat malleable.
Exactly, yes.
And if nothing else, it always explores that.
Yes.
So hopefully we get another Persona game sometime, and other than whatever Persona 5R will be. Although if Persona 5R has like a female protagonist, I'm going to be super fucking hyped. Hopefully she's canon this time.
I don't think it will. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think it will. I think it's gonna be another Mori, but in a different way, kind of thing.
But what if it was a completely different version where it's the female main character and like it's an alternate storyline and what's her face?
I don't think that's gonna happen.
What's her face? Shogi girl gets to be a main party member.
Holy bejesus! I don't think that's gonna happen though. No,
probably not. If I was gonna make a game based on Persona 5, that's what I would do personally.
Yeah, I would have Shogi girl in there because she's, in my opinion, the best girl. But you know what? It's not gonna happen, and I think that's fine. I will look forward to Persona 5R because I don't actually own Persona 5. My friend does, which means that I get to buy Persona 5R, and then
I was gonna say I don't own a PS4, so if Persona 5R is not gonna be on the Vita, then I'm gonna have to watch you play it because
you'll watch me play it because
I don't think Adam's gonna revisit another 120 hours of Persona.
No, I think that's too much, especially so soon.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm very interested in Boogiepop. I might actually go back and finish it. I say as if I have ever done that in the history of my entire fucking life.
Yeah.
But I want to.
It's an aspiration.
It's an aspiration. I'm very interested in this sort of like shadow world aesthetic, like this like under the surface supernatural tension.
I do actually really like that part of the series. Yeah.
I love it because it's done in a different way, I think, than a lot of American fiction deals with this. Because when I was growing up, I read a lot of books about, sort of like urban fantasy, I guess you could call them, in a sense.
Sure, yeah.
Where it's like, the secret world of monsters and stuff. But I kind of like that in Japanese fantasy or like urban fantasy, it's always heavily integrated with the urban part of the urban fantasy.
Yes, it is.
It's not that they're separate worlds, it's that they exist meshed with each other, and
yeah,
the reason,
they coexist. Yeah,
right. I think it sets up the tension really better too, because I think that some of the problems I have with books that are kind of like abstracted a little bit, right? Like I mean, even Percy Jackson, right? That series, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, to some extent is somewhat guilty of this, but I think of all the sort of young adult American fiction, that's one of the better ones, especially because Rick Riordan pulled like the fucking sickest heist of the century, because he made a popular series about like Greek gods in modern day life. First of all, he made the Greek gods awesome. Like they wear like Hawaiian shirts and sunglasses because Poseidon is like your fucking dad.
Yes.
And second of all, that book series does more for diversity in visible American fiction than like nearly every other young adult piece that has existed.
Interesting.
Before, like, I'm gonna say like 2014. Like there's the main character of the first book has dyslexia, and the characters in the next couple books are like trans and have differing sexualities. It's kind of amazing, and like these are like Disney backed books. Like he got like Disney's backing, and then suddenly was like, all right, shit, now it's time. Ba, 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 ba.
Time to reveal.
Time to reveal. Everyone's gay, sucker.
No, Disney's like, oh no, we can't
do
this anymore.
What have we done?
We have to remove it.
We just
like
have
we
to
removed
accept.
the gays and that China removed the gays from that Wood series.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
Renu still watched it.
I mean, returning to my point, right? It's the integration is important in setting up stakes, because it really feels like it actually is a threat to people.
Yeah.
Right? And like, I think this is also the case with the Promised Neverland to some extent. I think that because the stakes are so intimately tied to the well-being of characters and not necessarily to some abstract state, it feels a lot more impactful. Like if the kids escape, that the person who's going to be punished is Isabella. And you're like, and because we spend some time from her perspective and we get to know her backstory, right? To some extent, you're like, oh, yeah, that's pretty rough.
Yeah.
So because it sets up the real human stakes and like, the bad things that real people can do, it works out really well. Because I think a lot of Boogiepop can be read as metaphorical for, kind of real things that happen.
Yeah.
I'll try to watch it. I probably won't, but I'll try my darndest. But if you do like any of the stuff that we just talked about, you should watch it. Yeah. Okay, I didn't watch anything that you didn't watch, even though I desperately tried to.
Don't worry about it. I'll lightning round it.
Go.
So I talked about this briefly last episode, but I finished Run with the Wind. I got very emotional because this is perhaps one of my favorite sports anime that I've ever watched, and I've watched quite a few. Yeah, it is like genuinely like I want to go out and buy it because it is that rewarding at the end where they have each of the boys has their own character arc, and it comes to like, the way that it comes about at the end is so rewarding, and you feel like, this is the reason why they decided to run, even though like the whole premise was that Haiji was getting all these boys together, like kind of like ambushing them right into being part of his track team, and at the end they all find their reasons why they decided to stick around and continue running, and it's beautiful. I also watched Piano no Mori, the second season, which the last episode still hasn't released, but I'm actually really happy with the way that it's turned out, because they got rid of that dumb CG that they kept using in the first season for the piano hands. Bless me. They just decided that they're only going to show a couple of shots of actual, like the animated piano hands, and then for the most part, just let the music speak for itself. And it's really, really beautiful. So if you love beautiful piano music, watch it. It's a great anime. Like, it's apparently the manga has won lots of awards. And so if you imagine a manga about piano music where you can't even actually hear the piano music being played, and yet the storytelling is strong enough to carry the story forward. They put actual music now in the anime, so it's great. I love it a lot. I also continued Jojo, Golden Experience, Golden Wind. It's called Golden Wind, but his power is Golden Experience. Anyway, it's continuing as well. It's interesting. I'm not entirely sure, like, how much I like it in terms of like because you inevitably compare it to previous seasons of JoJo, you know. So far, the previous one to this one has been the one that I like the most because, like, I guess, like, creatively, like visually and storytelling wise, it was very, like, it was just awesome, right? And then for this one, it's very much like it's so battle focused, right? They like hyper focuses on battle, as opposed to previous seasons where there was more stuff like for a character interaction, like goofing off kind of thing. There's a bit of that kind of campiness. And then this one, there's like very little campiness. It's basically just all battles. And so that has its strengths and weaknesses, you know, considering Araki's writing. Like, if you like his type of, the way that he approaches fights and whatnot, then you'll love this season. If you are only okay with that stuff and you really like the character interactions more, you might not like this season as much. So it just depends. It feels like each season caters to a different part of the JoJo audience. So yeah.
I think that's true. I think that and of course, speaking as somebody who has never actually watched it, I'm actually planning on doing it as soon as I get some time, which is arguably never, but also like actually maybe feasible.
It might be feasible if you decide to do the part-time semester and then you graduate and whatnot. And
right, exactly. I want to watch it so that I can get all the JoJo memes.
Yeah, you'll be able to understand all the memes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll continue watching it because I'm invested and I want to see what happens. So, I also watched this is a Chinese anime, but it's Wei Kanjian or Duola. The second season was what came out just most recently in February, I think. In Japanese, it's called Hora, Mimi ga Mieteru yo. And it's like a really cute short form kind of anime about this author boy who falls in love with a cat ear boy. And it's very, very moe, like, but the art style is like so, like, it's not like that moe blob kind of style. It's like it almost looks like a hand drawn kind of style, but digitized, right? And so it's
I love this.
Right, it looks very cute, and it's short form. Like I said, I think it's great as a short form because it doesn't overstay its welcome. Because this kind of premise would just drive me crazy, right?
Yeah.
But because it's a short form, it's like, okay, I can just watch it really easily. Whatever, it's fine. And then they start introducing the other characters, which. The other characters are arguably more interesting, and so I'm more invested in them than anything else. Yeah, it's a nice little watch if you like cute art style and stuff like that, and you want to see boy fall in love with cat boy.
It does look cute.
Yeah.
Okay. Honorable mentions.
I think that's it of the stuff that I've watched that you didn't.
Okay. Honorable mentions. I'm gonna shout out Quintessential Quintuplets because I think the animation quality is probably inconsistent. I don't know, we only watched one episode, but even in that one it was a little bit, which is like not a good sign because the first episode is where you kind of want to put your effort, like your best foot forward. But the story, I've read the manga, it's pretty cute. The way that it handles like a harem show, I think, is better than most harems that have come out in the last couple of years. I think that it actually legitimately feels like a good addition to this genre. You know, it gives me a lot of when I was reading it, it actually reminded me why I read these back when I was like 12. I was like, oh, yeah,
interesting.
Because I think it. I don't remember how much we talked about this when we started the season, but it builds the characters really well, and it establishes their personalities, and it makes sure that they're not just one note, and it also makes sure that they're like gonna develop, right? It feels like the characters actually get development, and I think to some extent also it doesn't feel like they leave characters behind once their development is done, which I think is important. And I think a lot of that owes to the family dynamic. I still haven't watched it. Like, I passed the first episode, so that's all I can really say about it.
Yeah, but you do have at least the backing of the manga, so I imagine they would follow the manga. Yeah.
But if you watch an episode or two and you don't like it, I would honestly consider just like recommending reading the manga, because it's the same story, but the actual art of it is like really, really, really good. Like, it's gorgeous. It's like really, really polished for a weekly harem manga, which isn't to say that like stuff like Love Hina and I don't know, Nisakoi looked bad. They actually looked quite good, but this feels like there's a lot of care and attention put into like framing and paneling. Right. And so many sparkles, Renu. There's so many sparkles.
Yes, that's how you do in harem.
Yeah, I honestly think that you would like the art of this. Like, I think you would like it. I don't know about the story, because I know you are not super into frustrating relationships.
Help me.
So I don't know. Depends.
Yeah. Okay.
It is actually quite charming. It's quite funny. And you'll like the quintuplets, and also one of them is voiced by Kana Hanazawa. So did I say that right? Kana Hanazawa.
Your wife.
I can never remember if it's Kana Hanazawa or Hana Kanazawa. Okay, it's Kana Hanazawa.
You got it right. Yeah.
Yes.
Please remember the name of your wife. This will be embarrassing for you.
It's so like, it's because it rhymes internally all the way through. It's like there's an A every other letter, Renu.
Yeah, every vowel is an A.
I can remember the Ana, and I can remember the Anazawa. I just don't remember where the consonants go.
How dare you call yourself a fan of hers?
I know, I guess I'm not a real fan. But yes, Borat voiced my wife, Kana Hanazawa. I think that's it. I think that's kind of all we got through. It was
that's it.
Somewhat quieter in terms of like the amount of stuff that was like super good, or that was good in general, but definitely did not disappoint in terms of like landing shows that were really really good. Like there were at least 3 that were really really good, and some very very strong contention for the other slots. So very solid season all around.
I'm glad,
not very
because
quiet
that we finished the shows.
Assuming that we finished the shows, it was a little quieter than last season, but that's just because last season and last year were absolutely buck wild. Yeah, like it's so abnormal for that many good shows to come out.
Yeah, it really is
in that close of a succession. So very much that was I don't know. I think it was a good season, honestly.
I think so.
I'm looking forward to the next season.
Yes, I'm actually pretty excited for the next season, because there's a couple of things that I'm like, I wonder how it'll turn out. And I think y'all know what I'm talking about.
I'm very curious about certain things.
Yes.
That are in. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to be up to? Where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Tumblr and Facebook at SwanDrawn. I am also on Instagram at swan.drawn. I stream every Friday on Twitch, usually art stuff. I've been on a pixel art rampage, but I recently switched over to using Sprite, and oh my god, it's so much faster. So bless me. I've been using it for for editing the podcast now, like the images and stuff. Holy cannoli bajolies. It's so much faster. So other than that, I will be, like I said, at Anime Boston next weekend. So if you guys are in the area or if you're attending, by all means stop by my booth. I would love to see you. Other than that, it is convention season, so that's basically what I'll be working on, is stuff for that for now until the end of summer. So goodbye me. What are you up to?
I mean, I have to continue to fill out this application to go part-time. I have to do some real life bookkeeping to make sure that all my graduation stuff is in order. All my requirements are filled out, so that's definitely not a problem. I just need to sign up for commencement, which is the part of graduation where you walk.
Yeah.
So that's very important to my family. I don't really care about. I mean, I don't really care about walking.
Yeah, of course. I didn't really care about it either when I graduated, so.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Fruits Basket remake next season. That's
one of the things I was referencing when I was saying I'm looking forward to see how it turns out.
Of course.
Yeah. How could you forget, fool?
I know. Oh well. Yeah. Other than that, like, I'm just rolling, man. It's still the beginning of the quarter, so despite the fact that I'm still like a little bit sick, I am doing pretty okay.
Oh, good.
I feel like I have some breathing room.
Yeah, please balance it better than you did last quarter.
Oh, that's
I'll
unfortunate.
have to yell at you some more.
You know what? It's fine, because if I go part-time, it'll be the opposite of last quarter, where all my classes will not be stacked on the same day. I will have adequate time to sleep, probably. I have like one class a day, which I am kind of annoyed that I have to go to campus 4 out of 5 possible days, because it's like 40 minutes ish every way. So it's like I'm spending like because the thing about the bus schedule is that there's not enough buses.
Oh.
And they don't run as often as they should, because so they just once again in the midterms they proposed to increase the amount of money that we get for the transportation services, and guess what? We didn't do it because we're really, really bad at managing anything. If you tell people the taxes will go up, it doesn't matter if the students are doing great. They're just gonna say fuck off. So I'm pretty upset about that. We've been having more strikes recently. With like some amount of frequency. I apparently this has happened before. And I mean I'm all for it. Like I'm all for letting people disrupt my daily schedule for it sounds like I'm being like sarcastic or facetious. I'm really not. Like,
yeah,
I'm completely okay with that happening. It's just that, man, it just feels like the college is not listening, and that's such a bummer.
Yeah.
Luckily my professor, we had a strike on Wednesday, and luckily my professor is like understanding enough to be like, well, we're just not gonna have class that day because, you know, I'm not gonna cross a picket line. It's like, good, because I won't either.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like the least I can do, honestly, because like God knows my schedule is ridiculous. But yeah, so it takes like an hour and 20 minutes round trip usually, which doesn't even account for the time that I have to spend on campus waiting for a bus that isn't so full that they physically cannot fit more people on it, which has happened to me. I've literally stood at a bus stop waiting for upwards of 30 minutes waiting for a bus that has room in it. Like, I once had 3 or 4 buses pass by me, and they're just so full that
they don't even stop for you. They just keep driving because they're so full.
Exactly. Because, like, I mean, there's just not enough buses to accommodate the amount of students that there are, which is just a huge bummer. And I wish it wasn't that way, but it is. Mm-hmm. And also, our campus is at the top of a mountain, so it takes so long to get up there, Renu.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, other than that, I'll live, honestly, because like it just means that I have more time to listen to podcasts, and we have, or at the very least, if I only have 2 classes, like my workload will be easier, even if it's just a little bit. So,
right.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now. It looks like it'll be fine, and then I'll probably graduate, and then that'll be it. I'll be released into the world as some kind of fish.
A fish. I mean, you could be, as some people might say, like a shark, or perhaps a mammal of whale descent.
Yeah, I'll just freed into the ocean.
Yeah.
Freed into the ocean.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it'll be fine. I mean, we're gonna like, I swear, 2 or 3 episodes from now, you're gonna hear it, just like the, I'm dying. I can't wait for you to hear it. But you can find me in all the places.
I can't wait either.
You can find me all the places at Literal Soup. If I'm on a place, it's there.
Yay.
I'm really not doing anything more exciting than that, huh? Like, it's just really not. Like, we have some stuff in the pipeline, and that'll get announced at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't worry, we're working hard for your entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Our opening is by Scotchy Network, and our ending is by Takuma Okada. They're really cool. Check them out. I love them. They're great.
Yeah.
And
you can find our Twitter.
Yeah.
At Absolute Cast. We don't always post pictures of lady thighs in thigh highs or whatever. That's not what even though our podcast is named that.
Yeah.
That's not what we post about.
Yeah.
Soup just posts his thoughts on there a lot.
Yep. Post my thoughts.
But we also put our updates on there, so yeah.
Updates and stuff. I don't know. Oh, you should definitely watch the video versions. We have the new opening. Renu has worked tirelessly to present us.
I had a month where I was absent because I was working on that, and then now we're here and it's done.
And it's absolutely beautiful and wonderful, and it's so good, Renu. It's so good.
I already want to like redo it.
Oh my god, Renu. Renu, please. Leave some time for yourself, please.
I know. I'm not going to. It's going to be up there for we'll probably have to like have that just be our intro for like a year until like I actually have time to update it or something. But yeah.
Okay.
Lots of other things to work on in the meantime.
And yeah, we are Majima Construction Company. How does that go again? Renu? You do it.
But it goes like Majima. I don't remember the actual words. I gave you the link. Now I have to pull it up because it's in Japanese.
Oh. Wait, am I supposed to memorize it?
Yeah, you're supposed to memorize it. You're more fluent than me.
I thought we were gonna do this together.
No, you're supposed to play it, and it's gonna be all inspirational. And that's what it's going to be.
I played it last time.
Yeah, you have to play it again.
I can't play it every time. Our ending's gonna be like 8 miles long. Oh,
but it's so good. No, you don't play the whole thing. Just play the end of it.
Just play the end of it. Oh.
Yeah, because it says, "Sorega warera nagoro majima kensetsu." There.
Okay. You did it.
I did it out of tune just for you.
I mean, okay. sure. We'll look into this again and come back to you next week.
Yeah.
And hopefully one of us will have remembered to memorize this.
No.
Anyway, we're Majima Construction Company. That's us. Majima Construction Territory.
Yeah.
Territory? Yeah. Absolute territory. But Majima Construction.
He owns us.
He owns us. Majima Territory. Absolute Majima. I hope wherever Goro Majima is, he's having a great day.
I mean, he did wear fishnet stockings at one point, so he has some absolute territory going on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like if any character in the Yakuza series is going to, it's gonna be Goro Majima.
Okay, we're done.
Okay, we're done.
また明日ね。